Well, good day to you, dear pipe pals. How you doing? Holy Smoking Pipe Padre here, and I am smoking my. If you've watched some of my earlier videos from the past years, you may recognize my what I call my Halloweeny pipe or my October pipe. It is October now. Today is the 3rd, and this is a Robert Burns Macaulay freehand, and I absolutely love it. It looks like Halloween to me. And I haven't smoked it in quite a while. And in it, I am smoking one of my favorite autumnal blends, Selim's Black. And yes, dear friends, we are in the Selim season again with the Selim's Green, which has that coconutty flavor that I loved last year. And there's absolutely atrocious, disgusting Selim's Red, which I'm learning to love. It's almost gone, too. Anyway, so there you have it. Selim season back in force again. So there you go. Hope you're having a great day. Also have been smoking my Ashton. I'm going to put the Robert Burns down. And I'm going to relight my Ashton because I was smoking the last bit, almost the last bit, the penultimate smoke of the GBD. I'll have one more pipe bowl of this and that'll be done. Again, thanks to Tanya. So, kind of a different thing. If you've ever tried smoking two pipes kind of at the same time, more about different tobaccos. If you've never tried this little technique, it's kind of unique because, believe it or not, it kind of really helps to intensify the flavors of each of the tobaccos. Don't know exactly why it does that, but the palate is really kind of like it's kind of a, what's the word I'm looking for? It's energized. It kind of like really shocks your palate, and it's like, well, what am I tasting here? And so all of a sudden, it's trying to taste this tobacco, and then it's trying to taste that tobacco, and as it tries to do that and maybe open up more taste buds, you get more intense flavors. Okay, speaking about intensity, today we're going to talk about, I'm making a screen flow here. So let me see, I got to get my glasses on here. I don't like pinching this thing. I've actually made a video already, but I decided, let's see here, what would we start off with now? Oh, let's do this one here. Let's do this one here. Well, anyway, here we are, the old Huffington Puffington Post. And this was an earlier article about the infamous, supposedly, meeting between Pope Francis and Kim Davis. Now, I made a whole video about this earlier in the week. But I even said, you know, the thing is that this is being spun so much. And I said, 24 hours, we're going to get a completely different spin. And sure enough, we did. And it keeps spinning. You know, did the Pope meet with Kim Davis? Is the Pope secretly endorsing Kim Davis? Then they came out with, well, yeah, the Pope, she did see the Pope, but he didn't really talk to her personally. Well, he actually, no, he didn't really say, anyway. And then then the Pope met a gay guy, anyway. So let's just jump into it, because as we get ready, this is the October 3rd. And the big Senate on the Family Synod on the Family Meet starts tomorrow. And we'll go through the entire month of October. And there are people who, I'm sad to say, are kind of
very,
they're
very
not
early
being
symphony by 40
realistic
years of Haydn,
with
and we
what
almost never hear
what is really going on
later
inside the
on
life of the
as
church.
well. Gabriel
And I
Fauré,
think, and I get my humble opinion, totally my humble opinion,
about
but
80.
based upon
Not
my
exactly
years
sure
of
of his
lived
birth and death
experience
date, but
as a padre and as a
he
Catholic,
lived to right around the age
and
of
also
80, and
kind
he
of
was working
knowing a
right
little
up
bit,
until
not to
the
say that I
end.
have some
His
secret
D minor
knowledge,
piano trio,
esoteric
Concerto
knowledge that
Opus 120,
you
was written very
you
nearly
minions out there, you lay people don't have. That's not it at all. It's just that if you have never truly studied the Catholic Church,
this piece of music. Here's the
and I'm not talking about, historical analysis of whether you're talking about, I had somebody, kind of challenged me this morning and said, oh, the church has changed its views on, slavery and the Jews and purgatory and the Latin Mass. And, like somehow these were doctrines that the church changed. Well, to be honest, no. The church has never had a doctrine about slavery, like you should own slaves or whatever. A church has pretty much been against chattel slavery for centuries. As far as the Jews are concerned, the Pope, the people, the church recognizes that the Jews are the people of the first covenant, but we also invite them to discover Jesus as their Messiah, so we haven't changed that. I mean, it's not like we've ever, hated the Jews. We never, of course, hated the Jews. They've always been our elder brothers and sisters in the faith. We certainly, again, theologically, we believe Jesus is the Messiah. We're not going to apologize for that. And we invite them to come and know Jesus as the Messiah as well. The teachings of purgatory, I don't know where they thought that the teachings of purgatory had changed, but if you read the catechism, there we still teach that there is a purgation period known as purgatory. And as far as the Latin Mass goes, even though the new vernacular Novus Ordo Mass, in Latin meaning the normal order of Mass, the new order of Mass, I should say, is pretty much the standard for most Catholics, but the traditional Latin Mass is still alive and well. I celebrate it. I've celebrated it for years. Not exclusively like I once did, but any priest is allowed to celebrate the traditional Latin Mass with full authority of the Pope. So it's not like it's some bad thing. And yeah, the church did change some externals, but as far as the doctrines, and these were not doctrines, some of these things were just external things, either in the life of the church or in the life of society. But so again, we have to be careful when we say the church has changed. What did it change? Well, nothing really. It made allowances for new things, we will say that. Okay? But anyway, I had a person, one of my dear viewers, who made a comment in regards to the last video, and he said that he felt Pope Francis was bringing about change because he, and I'm paraphrasing now, because he basically exemplifies, went down the wrong pipe there. Pope Francis exemplifies what true Christianity is. And so I thought I would try and explain something that a lot of people look at Christianity from two kind of different perspectives. And so the first one is, for example, this whole Kim Davis thing. Well, when the Holy Father came out, a year ago or 2 years ago and said, on the plane, seems to make all these interesting statements on planes. So when the Pope gets in a plane, I get nervous. But supposedly he had said about, interestingly enough, about a Catholic priest. In today's news, a Catholic priest in Vatican came out declaring that he has a lover and that, the church needs to change again. Here we go again. But anyway, he kind of got slapped. And so anyway, he's in the papal doghouse right now. So, but so you get people who, when the Pope says, "Who am I to judge?" you get a lot of people say, "See, the Pope agrees with me. The Pope is for gay marriage." Well, if you really read what the Pope has said over and over again, although he doesn't he doesn't highlight it the way maybe, say, Pope John Paul II would, or even Pope Benedict, very strongly. At the very end of usually most pieces, there was a thing about where the Pope stands. I would probably click that up here if I could, but that's not the one I really want to focus on in a moment. But basically, so when people hear who am I to judge, they people see the Pope's on our side. The Pope agrees with me. And then when the Kim Davis story came out earlier in the week, see, now the Pope agrees with us. Pope is against same-sex marriage. So you got this battle that goes on between different groups of people in the church. Those who, seek change, and those who want to stay with the quote-unquote traditional status quo. And there we have this kind of debate. And so the question my friend raised was, well, he thinks that Pope Francis embodies, true Christianity. And again, you would have to, I think we need to ask the question is, well, what is true Christianity? Good question. It's interesting that in the Mass, we say, just before we say the Our Father together as a church family, we say, at the Savior's command and formed by divine teaching, we have courage to say, Our Father. Now that, believe it or not, is the short answer to what I'm about to kind of give a long, elaborate little dissertation on, is that there are two necessary dimensions in the life of the church. And you can't have one without the other. You have to have both and. It's not an either or proposition. And so many people think that the gospel is one thing or another. And we always have to go back, and we have to, in fact, I have it over here, my little notes that I had that I want to go back to, what the church is. And there are two different dimensions, at least, that I would say, that have to be recognized if you're in order to kind of unravel this Gordian knot, because it is kind of a big can of worms at the end of the day, or it can be. So you have to ask yourself, what is Christianity? Now, a lot of people today feel that, well, the old Christianity doesn't work anymore, so we have to kind of like reinvent it, Christianity 2.0, like the iPhone 6S, now we have Christianity, 2.0S or whatever it is. iChurch, 6.0. And so the thing is that they feel that it's almost like, it's kind of interesting if you've ever watched the Game of Thrones. They're in the same kind of conundrum that we are, and I think that writer kind of probably was kind of aware of that, because when they talk about, when people begin to, they want to testify, they say, well, I testify on the old gods and the new gods. It's an interesting phrase. You'll hear a lot of the characters when they're trying to implore somebody to listen to them, or that they have a right to speak or voice their opinion. Well, according to the old gods and the new gods, And in many ways, I think that's what we see kind of happening in some ways in our own society, is that the old moral life, or the old moral teachings have seemed to be either bankrupt or obsolete, and now we need to we're going to have to make them up again, or supposedly make them up as we go along. Which, interestingly enough, it really is not Christianity at all. And so, we have to ask ourselves, what is Christianity? Well, some people feel it's all about being nice and doing good for other people, okay? But other people see that Christianity is about following a moral way of life, if you will, a call to discipleship. Well, believe it or not, both of those perspectives have to be together. They have to be joined together. In fact, I would dare say that they are warp and woof of the complete fabric of Christianity. You cannot have one without the other. So I thought I'd go to the Gospels, pretty reliable source, and just hear what Jesus says. He says, "Go into all the world and preach the good news to all creation. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved, but who does not believe will be condemned. Now, this is Jesus. We've got to remember, this isn't St. Paul. This isn't, one of the gospel writers. These are the words of Jesus. Then it goes on to say, all authority has been given to me in heaven and earth. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all things that I have commanded you. And lo, I'm with you always, even to the end of the age. Then another gospel. These are all basically taken from the story of the Ascension. Thus it is written, thus it was necessary for the Christ to suffer and to rise from the dead on the third day, and that repentance and remission for sins should be preached in his name to all nations, beginning at Jerusalem, and you are witnesses of all these things. So there is this understanding that the church has a mission. The mission is to preach the message of salvation. The church has to teach and baptize and make disciples, okay? That's the mission of Christ. That's the mission of the church. Now, the ministry of the church is where we get into things like the social gospel. Again, from the gospel we read, and then he will say to those on his left, depart from me, you cursed, into eternal fire. Listen, he said, talking about eternal fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me not. Naked, and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison, you did not visit me. And then they will say and answer, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or stranger or naked or sick or in prison and did not minister to you? And then he will say to them, truly I say to you, as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it for me. And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. So what we learn from these gospel passages are those two necessary components of what real Christianity is about. A lot of people today are hoping for something that I have to say is truly unrealistic. That the church is basically going to abolish and abandon its teachings on abortion, contraception, same-sex marriage, women priests, euthanasia, all the hot-button issues, cohabitation, communion for divorced and remarried people, simply because these constitute a grave injustice to the teaching component of the church. And again, the church has to teach us what it means to be a disciple, and it has done that. And the church and the Holy Father cannot change the moral teaching of the church. Even if they felt that it was expedient or it was necessary, it can't do that. Now, there may be some instances where the church might be able to accommodate in a pastoral way some situations. And again, I don't know what that looks like. In fact, I think the Holy Father, what he's trying to do, kind of like almost a good Italian papa, is say, okay, you disagree, you're upset, let's hear what you have to say. Because we have to remember that this Synod, and this is something that needs to be said, a lot of people think that the Synod of all these bishops is sort of like a parliamentary thing, where they're going to basically, ferret out, they're going to, parse out, if you will, what's going to happen, what the course of the church should be, and then they're going to basically, like Parliament, they're going to vote either yea or nay, and then after the result of their vote, then that will become established church law / teaching. That's not what the Synod is all about. They don't even have the authority to do that. The Synod, we must remember, is consultatory. So they will make recommendations after they have convened, after they have met, and then the Holy Father, after further consultation with his advisors, will be able to then write something definitive for the life of the church. But again, we have to remember something. No matter how progressive we want the Pope to be, again, he does not have the authority to change doctrines regarding faith and morals. A good case in point is this whole thing about, say, women's ordination. The Pope, he has said time and time again, this makes people mad, but he says that door has been closed. Boom! The church can't do anything about that, okay? The church has already answered that. It's not going to happen. Again, people feel, because in our country, how do we get change? We agitate and we agitate and we agitate. Thank you, Huffington Post. Thank you, liberal media. Keep pounding and hammering away, and eventually they're going to hold up their hands and say, we're sorry, we were wrong, we change. Well, probably that's not going to happen. And I'm going to say that very forthrightly to a lot of you, because some of you really believe that the church has to change and it will change. And I'm just telling you, if you read the fine print, that probably is not going to happen. A friend of mine, I was talking to a really knowledgeable priest today, and he says the people that love Pope Francis today will hate him tomorrow. Because why? Let's have a little history lesson. Back right after Vatican II, Pope Paul VI was deeply burdened and troubled by the contraception issue. And he was aware, as it is to probably today, that a lot of Catholics just can't accept the Church's authentic, authoritative teaching on Humanae Vitae, of human life. And I would dare say that if you want to understand, I'm not saying you may agree, but if you want to understand why the Church is opposed to contraception, abortion, and same-sex marriage, you have to understand what the Church teaches in regards to human life. So you would do well to read Humanae Vitae. But the thing is that when Paul VI and people were, historians have said he was very sympathetic to modern day issues. And if he thought if he could make a change to the Church's authentic teaching regarding this moral understanding of human sexuality, he was in favor of trying to find a way to say, yeah, maybe in some cases artificial contraception is okay. But in the very end, when he went back, again, after some people had, I don't know if they had a synod on all this, but the bottom line is that the bishops did meet after Vatican II to discuss the issue. And again, he had to go back to what the Church authentically teaches, and he had to weigh that. And that's what's going to happen with Pope Francis. And at the very end, even though, he wanted to be sympathetic, he wanted to be reaching out to people, at the bottom line was he had to uphold Church, the authentic moral teachings of the Church. He couldn't turn his back on that. So I'm just telling you that after this synod, and it's probably going to be really raucous. My priest friend said, yeah, it's going to be a real rock'em sock'em kind of a thing. So a lot of fireworks. But at the end, when the Holy Father gets the recommendations, he will then go and deliberate prayerfully and with his closest advisors. And they're going to say, well, according to the Church, can we actually make these changes, or what can we do? So a lot of things probably people are hoping for. I'm just saying, don't get your hopes up. In fact, a lot of times, just as the Holy Father was coming over to America, there was a couple of news places that were trying to be objective. That's all I'm trying to say, is be objective with this. And they, again, they would say, well, where does the Pope stand on these issues? And every time, they would say, well, he seems to be, open to this, or he seems to be very supportive of this, or sympathetic to that. But in the end, he upholds the Church's tradition. Okay? So you need to read these things very carefully, and meditatively, prayerfully, and just not be swept up by, a lot of people who are upset and angry. And I think a lot of people are upset and angry, and they don't even know why they're upset and angry. And that's one of the things that I would like to challenge people in a kind of a loving way, is say, what is it that upsets you so? I might have said this before. Forgive me if I'm being repetitious. I don't mean to be. But there are a lot of people that, because I'm a Catholic priest, they think, one, because I'm a Catholic, I'm a sinner and I'm going to hell. They don't recognize my ordination at all. They think I'm an apostate or an agent of Satan. There are a lot of people that don't agree with the Catholic Church. And you know what? I don't spend a lot of time worrying about that. And I would just say, if you're upset that the Catholic Church doesn't support your way of life or your theology, your personal view of life, you know what? that's okay. You know, I just think it's, I don't understand. I do understand in some ways why a lot of people want to force the church to try to now to capitulate and say, well, we were wrong, and now we're going to change. Now, this is the one thing I did want to kind of highlight as I'm using ScreenFlow here, is what Pope Francis said about conscience. I don't know if I highlighted portion is still there or not. And I hate this thing here where it doesn't, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can highlight this. Maybe you can see this. Oh, doggies, cute. I love doggies. Okay, let's see. Oh, doggone it. Okay. Whether or not Pope Francis met with Kim Basinger? No, I mean Kim Davis. Okay, that is all spun out of control. And again, when I first heard about it, I was incredulous to begin with. So I was like, well, whatever. So that's kind of immaterial at this point. I think it's kind of a moot point, whether he did or he didn't. Again, a lot of people look at, well, see, he met with her, so that means he agrees with our side. Or, you know, he met with this transgendered guy, so that means he agrees with our side. Well, maybe he's just reaching out to people of all stripes, okay? Which is what St. Francis would do, you know? So I don't think it adds anything to anybody's cause. Again, I think we have to be really careful that we don't politicize the church. And that's what a lot of people are doing. Really good. Soda's black and a cup of coffee with lots of heavy cream in it. And I don't have time to do it this time, but I want to get this kind of off the table and then move on to other topics. I want to talk about in my next video, just this is kind of an aside, I want to talk about, you know, my diet, my ketogenic diet, and some Apple updates, okay? So we won't do that now because that just take me way too long. So anyway, so here's what the Pope said, which I think is very interesting. He says about conscience. He says, I can't have in mind all cases that can exist about conscientious objection, but yes, I can say that conscientious objection is a right that is part of every human right. Again, it is a right, and if a person does not follow others to be, and if a person does not allow others to be a conscientious objector, he denies a right. Okay. So the thing is that this whole thing about a person's conscientious objection, and that's a right that we have. Again, I think what we have to understand is very fundamental to the argument and debate and the culture wars that seem to go on. Is that for years, certainly, the church, Christianity, has made a declaration based upon the morality of the scriptures that, let's just use same-sex marriage as a touch case here, is that this is wrong. And, you know, so, you know, we have the authority, you know, the moral authority, so therefore you people that are into same-sex marriage, you have to basically admit you're wrong and you have to change. Well, now the shoe's on the other foot, clearly, because the American society and other governments have basically allowed and legalized same-sex marriage. So what's happening now is that now the shoe's on the other foot, and so now, because people feel like, well, wait a minute, our legal authority tells us that it's okay, and now you people who disagree, you have to now acquiesce, you have to give up your stance, and you have to admit that we were right and you were wrong. Well, just like the former, where people would say, wait a minute, I don't agree with that. I don't believe with that. And again, that is your conscience. You cannot be coerced. You can be convinced, certainly. You can argue and maybe come about with a new understanding. But the moment you try to coerce anybody, even using law, whether it's divine law or legal, a secular law, you really can never coerce anybody to go against their conscience. And this is something that, again, we need to understand in our day and age. Again, there are going to be people, numerous people, countless people who do not agree. Now, again, I think that you can still, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, you don't always have to agree on everything to be friends or civil, courteous, respectful of people. But you cannot violate a person's conscience. And it's not, well, you're a bigot, and so therefore you're bad, and we're not going to tolerate you. Well, it doesn't work that way. Again, I have I believe. So I hate it with it. I hate it when this is one Apple thing. I don't want to get onto it now, but anyway, that keeps changing on me. Keeps reloading the page. So I think it's really important that we understand that you cannot coerce anybody to go against their conscience, one way or the other. And that's what seems to be happening now. A lot of people are really striving. They feel like, well, we've got the legal side. Now we just need to get the church to agree with us, and then we'll be happy. I don't know if they'll be happy or not. But I would just say, you know what? It may not happen. And what are you going to do then? So I just don't know. Again, you cannot violate a person's conscience one way or the other. So, we live in interesting times. There's no doubt about that. And I think it's okay to disagree on things. And I've said it before. I'll say it again. If you're respectful, I can try to give you my explanation why I believe the things I believe. I believe that when it comes to the church's teachings, the moral teachings, they are divinely revealed. They come to us from God and from Christ, and we don't have the ability to countermand him. We don't have the ability to say, well, Jesus, I think you were wrong on that issue, or, I don't think that the church is right, so I think we need to change. You may want to believe that, but in the end, you can't go against what the church has established for over 2,000 years. It just won't work. And so a lot of people who, kind of want to say, well, I swear by the old gods and the new gods, that's not really part of Christianity. We only have one God, and we believe that he has spoken to us, and he has, made his divine will very clear. Again, as I said in the earlier, one of the things about Mass is we say that at the Savior's command and formed by divine teaching, because we are called to be disciples. And I like something that I kind of touched on last video, is that all people are called without question. But we're all called to conversion. We're called to discipleship. Dietrich Bonhoeffer said that when God calls a man, he is literally calling him to death. He's calling him to the death of his self. And Jesus said, you must pick up your crosses daily and follow me. So to be a Christian means that you have to renounce self, follow Christ and his teachings. And part of his teachings are the ministry that he calls us to as well, to take care of the hungry, the homeless, those who are less fortunate than ourselves. Yes, Jesus did dine with sinners, but he wasn't condoning. See, this is an interesting thing about the Pope. If a Pope meets with, say, a gay person, or he meets with somebody who's, notorious, some people believe, like Kim Davis, or, somehow like, well, see, now he's saying it's okay to be like this. It's okay to, that we load that meeting with so much political baggage. Jesus, yeah, he ate with sinners, and he drank with sinners, but he was trying to show them a better way. Instead of again coercing them with, say, intellectual or moral arguments or legal arguments, he was trying to open their hearts, their minds to something far more radical. and that is this self-sacrificing concept of love. Real love is self-sacrificing. It is giving up yourself to follow God and to serve others. So I guess I would say simply in conclusion that real Christianity simply is a call and acceptance to follow Christ as his disciple and to love others as Jesus loved them. Now, it doesn't mean, a lot of people I think want to see that forgiveness and mercy is a free pass. It's okay to be this or that and still remain a Christian. Early Christians, especially the martyrs, the saints, clearly showed us that that's not authentic Christianity. So, again, that's the other phone ringing, so it probably means I need to probably get going here. But I hope that makes sense. If you agree or disagree, great. Had a lot of really good comments last video. Had a few that were, kind of trying to challenge the old Padre, and that's okay too. As long as we're respectful, that's okay. I have no problems with that whatsoever. But again, I would just say, maybe instead of trying to push, aggressively for an agenda, maybe what's really the best thing to do is kind of sit back and then with a very, very quiet and what's the word I'm looking for? An objective mind, heart, and spirit. Just kind of let's listen. Let's maybe instead of agitating, let's just cogitate. Instead of agitate, cogitate. In other words, let's think about a lot of things that are being proposed and ask, is it truly in keeping with authentic Christianity? Is it in keeping with the call of Christ to conversion and discipleship? Is it a call to Christ to help others, truly help others, not just condone something and give them a free pass? Okay, I'm kind of surprised. I think I got everything I wanted to say this time. So I hope it makes sense. Hope you're having a great day and enjoying a lovely autumn pipe. I would have done it outside, but there's a whole bunch of people out there, and I don't want to take the risk of somebody smelling tobacco smoke going, ew, you smoke, and it's like, hey, I don't need it, it's none of your business, but, some people are so, again, they're so anti-smoking that, they smell a little whiff of pipe smoke and they get all upset. So anyway, to keep them at peace and myself at peace, I just say, I'll just stay in here and make my video in here today. All right. Well, hope you guys got something out of that, and we'll see you next time. Blessings. God bless. See you later. Light up your world. Light up your pipe, our pipes. See you now. Let me turn this off. Bye.